They called it Bangkwang. The locals called it the Big Tiger, not because of how it looked, but because once it got its teeth into you, it didn't let go. For me, it wasn't just a prison, it was home. For 7 long years, this hellhole was where I ate, breathed, and slowly died. I still remember my first morning inside. The air was so thick with humidity, you could wring it out like a wet rag. Sweat trickled down my spine as we stood in the open yard. The fresh meat lined up for inspection. A guard in a brown uniform barked out broken English. "Here you are nothing. Forget your name. Forget your country. Here you are only a number." My name was Alexei Varnin, 34 years old. Once a hydrological engineer from Vladivostok. Now, I was prisoner 4721. Sentenced to life for trafficking heroin I'd never seen. 12 by 8 meters. 50 men. One squat toilet in the corner. That was my cell. We slept in shifts because there wasn't enough room on the floor for everyone. Every morning, I woke up covered in new bedbug bites. Cockroaches and centipedes roamed our bodies like they paid rent. Breakfast? A bowl of rice crawling with worms. Lunch? Rice with dead ants if you were lucky. Dinner? Not always guaranteed. Water was rationed. Twice a day, half a cup per inmate. Most days, it was rust brown, more poison than hydration. No, I wasn't a drug mule. I was a fool. A stupid fool who agreed to deliver business documents for a client of a friend. That's what they told me. When customs at Bangkok airport opened my suitcase and found 3 kilos of heroin, my world collapsed. The court-appointed lawyer spoke English worse than I spoke Thai. My trial lasted 40 minutes. Life sentence. No appeal. My wife Irina came to see me twice in that first year. Then the letters came less often. After 3 years, silence. I didn't blame her. Life goes on. Just not for me. Inside Bangkwang, there was a hierarchy. Thai inmates at the top. Foreigners, Farangs like me, at the bottom. In between, Malaysians, Burmese, Chinese. You had to earn your place, or die in the cracks. I survived by fixing things, wires, plumbing, broken fans. My hands bought me protection. A bowl of rice here, a favor there. That was my currency. But every day, I saw men fade. Some from beatings. Some from infections. Most from the slow erosion of hope. Tuberculosis, dysentery, hepatitis. Those were our real cellmates. Medical treatment? Only if you could pay. Otherwise, pray and rot. I clung to my sanity like a drowning man grips driftwood. Each morning I solved math problems in my head. Recited Pushkin poems I'd memorized in school. Counted the cracks in the ceiling again and again. But after 7 years, I started to let go. My body, once strong, was now bones and skin. At night I coughed blood. The prison doctor came once a month. He looked at me, shrugged. Tuberculosis. No medicine. That night, lying on cold concrete, I understood something. I had 2 choices. Die here slowly. Or try to escape, even if it meant dying fast. At least that death would be on my terms. So I started watching. Listening. Planning. The first to speak to me about escape was a Thai inmate named Sagda. He worked in the prison's underground sanitation system, skinny, wiry, with eyes like firecrackers. He approached me while I was fixing a busted toilet in the admin wing. "You understand water, Farang?" he whispered in broken English. "Water is freedom." I said nothing. In Bangkwang, walls had ears. Informants got better food, better beds. But Sagda was persistent. A week later, he sat beside me in the mess hall. Old tunnels. Chinese built them. Long time ago. Now flooded. During monsoon, they touched the river. He said it like it was a secret carved into the bones of the prison. Why don't you use them yourself? I finally asked. He grinned, revealing brown rotting teeth. I can't swim. From that moment, the plan began to take shape. He mapped drainage routes in his head. I repaired plumbing all over the compound and memorized building layouts. At night we whispered, sentence by sentence, week by week, under the laundry room. In the oldest part of the prison, there was a rusted access hatch. Below it, a maintenance tunnel that connected to an ancient drainage system built during King Ramavi's reign. Theoretically, it led to the Chao Phraya River, 2 kilometers away. But there was a catch. Most of the tunnels were underwater. Sewage water, rainwater, stagnant death. We needed gear, a raft, air supply, and a way to survive down there. Impossible, I said one night. Nothing impossible, Sagda snapped back. I know someone. Enter Li Wei, a Chinese inmate convicted of industrial espionage. Former engineer. He worked in the prison workshop, making bags, repairing chairs, crafting furniture sold to the outside world. I need materials, he said when we met in a bathroom stall. Rubber, tubes, glue, time. And just like that, we began the most dangerous stage of all, the build. We became ghosts before we ever left the walls. Every day was a performance. Every whisper had to be timed between the footsteps of guards. Every stolen glance, every slip of a plastic tube into a trash pile, every screw lifted from a rusted shelf. It was all part of something bigger. The plan to vanish. We knew the walls were closing in on us. But we also knew where they were weakest. Sagda had access to the sewers, the forgotten arteries of Bangkwang. I had access to the maintenance rooms, the workshops, the pipes that ran like veins through the heart of the prison. And then there was Li Wei. He was the mind. A Chinese engineer locked up for corporate espionage, but in here, he was a kind of legend. He spoke softly, moved deliberately, and when we brought him the idea of escape, of a route through flooded tunnels, he didn't hesitate. He simply said, "Then we'll need a boat." A boat. In a maximum security prison in Thailand. It sounded insane. And maybe it was. But Li Wei just nodded. "Give me rubber. Glue. Tubes. Anything with air in it. Anything that floats." He started sketching on the back of old laundry forms, drawing with charcoal scavenged from burnt rice. His plan looked like madness. A raft built from empty detergent canisters, plastic sheeting, and stitched rubber sheets. But there was a logic to it. A savage, desperate brilliance. We stole piece by piece. Sagda bribed Thai inmates for scraps. I bartered my repair work for access to storage closets. Li Wei hollowed out a broken washing machine and turned it into a hidden workshop. We called it the womb. Inside it, our boat was born. The worst part wasn't the fear. It was the waiting. We needed monsoon. Heavy rain to flood the tunnels and mask our movements. We needed a night with minimal guards. We needed distraction. Noise. Darkness. Chaos. Sagda handled that part. One of the inmates in Block C hears voices, he told me. He'll light his mattress on fire for a candy bar. It was a sick kind of genius. Everything had to align like stars in a broken sky. Then the signal came. August 15th. Peak of rainy season. 2 weeks away. But things went wrong. 10 days before the escape, A guard discovered one of our hidden compartments during a routine inspection. A plastic hose wrapped in cloth, hidden behind a vent in Li Wei's workshop. They took him. For 2 days, we didn't see him. We thought it was over. We thought he was dead. Then, late at night, he came back. His face swollen. Fingers broken. "I didn't talk," he whispered. "But they'll be watching." We moved the gear. Tonight. We relocated everything to an old septic tank behind the laundry block. A pit so foul that even the most sadistic guards wouldn't go near it. It stank like death, but it was safe. The timeline collapsed. We had to act sooner. 3 nights before our scheduled date, Sagda slipped me a note scratched on rice paper. Tonight. Heavy rain. Guards distracted. Warden's birthday party. This is the window. I felt my pulse explode. I'd dreamed of freedom for 7 years. Now it was coming early, and we weren't ready. But it didn't matter. There would be no second chance. That night, the rain came like drums from heaven, a wall of sound beating against the metal roofs. The storm roared so loud it drowned every footstep, every shout. Perfect cover. At 11:15 p.m., I heard the signal. 3 taps on the water pipe. Short. Sharp. Sagda. Time to go. I rose from my mat like a man walking to execution. Not one of my cellmates stirred. They were used to the night sounds of a dying prison. I reached beneath the floor tile, pulled out a sharpened strip of metal, not for fighting, but for the lock on the laundry room door. Getting out of the cell was easier than I expected. I'd fixed that lock so many times, I knew its rhythm like a song. Within seconds I was in the corridor, shadows wrapping me like a blanket. Sagda was waiting by the laundry room. His eyes glittered in the stormlight. "Li Wei's already inside. Let's move." The door creaked open. Inside, the smell of bleach couldn't hide the mildew. The washing machines loomed like silent sentinels. Li Wei knelt beside one, pulling our gear from the hidden compartment. His fingers still trembled from the beating, but his movements were precise. 15 minutes before shift change, he whispered. "We have to be in the tunnel by then." We pulled on our makeshift wetsuits, stitched from rubber raincoats and plastic sheeting. They weren't airtight, but they'd slow the chill. The hatch was beneath a broken dryer. We gritted our teeth and shoved. It groaned in protest, then slid just enough. The hatch opened with a gust of heat and rot. A wave of fetid air slapped our faces. Li Wei clicked on the homemade flashlight, a bulb wired to batteries, wrapped in a plastic bag. A shaft of sickly yellow light sliced into the dark. Sagda lowered himself in first. "Follow me. Then you. Then Li Wei." He disappeared into the black. I took one breath. Then another. And then I followed him down into the mouth of the beast. The ladder was slick with slime. 10 meters straight down into a throat that hadn't breathed fresh air in decades. I could feel it in my hands, rust, dampness, decay. Each rung cut into my palms. Each step echoed with a question. "Are you sure? Are you sure you want to do this?" But there was no turning back. At the bottom, Sagda waited, waist deep in murky water, the walls of the tunnel slick with algae and rot. Li Wei descended behind me, carrying the folded raft strapped to his back. The light from our homemade lamp flickered like a dying star. "Walk first 500 meters, Sagda said, voice a whisper above the water. "Then swim." I nodded, my heart pounding like war drums. The tunnel was barely taller than a man. A round pipe, curved and claustrophobic, the walls narrowing as we moved deeper. The air was thick, heavy with the stench of sewage, rot, and something else. Something ancient. We walked slowly, each step sloshing through warm water that rose from ankles to knees to thighs. The darkness was so complete, it felt like we were being swallowed. No one spoke. Breathing was hard enough. By the time we reached the flood zone, the water was at my chest. Li Wei unstrapped the raft and began unfolding it. It looked even more pathetic in the light, stitched plastic, tied with wires, patches of rubber like surgical scars. "It floats," he said simply. And it did. We tied it to Sagda's waist. It would drift behind us, carrying spare air tanks and 2 bottles of clean water, our only supplies for the next unknown stretch. Then we fitted the gear. Homemade breathing tubes. Masks fashioned from soda bottles. Tanks filled with compressed air stolen from the prison's firefighting supply room. 20 minutes. "That's all we've got," Li Wei reminded us. "Don't panic. Move slow. Save breath." I nodded, even though my lungs already ached just thinking about it. Sagda adjusted his mask and dropped into the water without hesitation. I followed. The moment I submerged, the world changed. Everything slowed. Every sound muted. Every instinct screamed. The water was thick, filled with floating debris and God knows what. I could barely see my hands. The flashlight attached to Sagda's chest was our only lifeline, a glowing speck ahead in the void. We kicked gently. Slow, controlled. The raft bumped behind us. But my mind? It was chaos. Claustrophobia clawed at me. What if we got stuck? What if the air ran out? What if there was no exit? Each minute stretched like hours. Each breath was a prayer. First turn. Second. Then, Sagda flashed his hand, right turn. We followed. The current began to pull, just slightly. That meant we were close to the river, or to being flushed into hell. Then, the light flickered. Once. Twice. Black. Suddenly, we were blind. I felt a hand grab my shoulder. Li Wei, panic behind the mask. We couldn't see. Couldn't speak. But we kept moving. Touch the wall. Keep contact. Don't drift. That's what we trained for. Form a chain. Trust the one ahead. Trust the one behind. Then, crash. I slammed into something hard. A collapsed section. The ceiling had dropped. The tunnel narrowed. Too tight for the raft. I yanked the rope attached to it. Sagda turned back. No words, just gestures. Leave it. No choice. That raft carried everything we had, backup air, food, water. Gone. The passage was barely wide enough for one man. I squeezed through. Scraped my back. Tore the wetsuit. Water seeped into every cut. My lungs burned. My head pounded. But we pushed on. And then, light. A soft silver glow. Was it real? Was it oxygen-starved delirium? No, it grew brighter. Moonlight. Filtered through river water. We were close. I kicked harder. Faster. The pressure crushed my chest, but I didn't care. I needed air. Now. I surged upward, broke the surface with a gasp that tore my lungs. Coughed. Choked. Felt the cool slap of night on my skin. We'd made it. One by one they surfaced. Sagda. Li Wei. The river around us churned. The current pulled hard. But we were alive. Free. No guards. No bars. Just open sky and moonlight. We did it, I whispered, my voice barely audible. But even as the joy surged through me, I knew it wasn't over. We were fugitives now, hunted. And the tiger we escaped from would not rest. We were free, But freedom isn't always quiet. The river was wide, black as oil, and full of life, none of it friendly. We let the current carry us, floating low, barely moving. Too close to the prison, too loud, and we'd die anyway. Rain lashed down in sheets. Thunder cracked the sky open. We drifted, ghosts on the surface, until the floodlights of Bangkwang were distant stars behind us. There, Sagda whispered. A bend in the river. A concrete platform jutting from the trees. A forgotten dock near a Buddhist temple, cloaked in darkness and prayer. We climbed out, half drowned, soaked in river rot, lungs burning from the effort. Sagda moved fast, stripping off the prison uniform. Too recognizable, he said. Follow me. We cut through temple grounds like shadows. The monks didn't even look at us. In that hour before dawn, the golden roofs and incense smoke felt like another planet, and we were intruders from hell. Outside the temple, Bangkok was waking up. Vendors setting up stalls. Tuk-tuks buzzing. Even in the rain, the city never really slept. We ducked into a narrow alley, hidden by crates and garbage bins. Sagda turned. Wait here. I'll find a phone. Call a friend. He disappeared into the maze of concrete. I looked at Li Wei. He was shivering, lips blue, eyes distant. We didn't speak. We just waited. Minutes turned into an hour. Maybe he got caught, Li Wei muttered. Maybe he ran. I hated how much that made sense. But then, a silhouette. Sagda. And someone else. A tall man in expensive clothes, sunglasses, slick hair. He moved like he owned the street. This is Pro Chai, Sagda said. My friend. He'll help us. Pro Chai looked us up and down, clearly unimpressed. You look like hell. Come. He led us to a black minivan with tinted windows. Inside, water bottles. Dry clothes. Silence. It felt like luxury. It felt like a trap. I'll take you to a safe place, Pro Chai said. But then you work. You pay. We have no money, I said. You'll work it off. He smiled without warmth. We drove for over an hour, deeper into the countryside. Bangkok faded behind us. Rice paddies, dirt roads, the smell of wet earth. Finally, a warehouse. Rusted. Empty. This is it, Pro Chai said. Stay low. Someone will come. He left us with food, water, and a warning. If you try to run, I'll call the police. Whole country's looking for you. Big reward. When he drove away, silence returned. Just wind. The hum of insects. We were fugitives again. But not just that, we were property. We spent 2 days in that warehouse. Rationing food. Taking turns sleeping. Sagda stayed quiet, staring out the window like he was somewhere else. Then the truck came. 4 men. 3 Thai. 1 European, pale, cold, German accent. These are the new mules, he said. They'll do. He pointed at the table. On it, rows of rubber capsules. You'll swallow these. 50 each. Then cross into Laos. Deliver. Simple. His voice was flat. Mechanical. If one bursts, you die. He didn't blink. My stomach twisted. 7 years locked up for drugs I never touched. And now, this. I looked at the capsules. I looked at Li Wei. And I knew. No, I said. I'm not doing it. I'd rather die free. Li Wei nodded. We escape. Again. That night, we slipped out through a broken window. Into the wet grass. Into the dark. Sagda stayed behind. I know these people, he said. I'll work once, then disappear. We didn't argue. Each man chooses his own escape. The sky was black. No stars. No moon. Perfect for a second escape. We slid through the window like rats. Out into the rice fields, waist-deep water, mud that sucked at your legs like teeth. We didn't look back. Behind us, the warehouse. The men. The capsules. The cage we just escaped. Ahead, more jungle. More uncertainty. But this time, it was ours. We ran. Through ankle-deep sludge, vines that tore at our clothes, branches that snapped across our faces. We ran until our lungs screamed and our legs buckled. And then, we heard it. Dogs. 1. Then 3. Then a chorus of snarling death behind us. Voices. Shouts in Thai. Flashlights. They'd noticed. We need to split up, Li Wei gasped. I knew he was right. We double their chances. You go left. I'll draw them straight. He hesitated, then grabbed my hand. Good luck, brother. See you on the other side, I said. And just like that, he vanished into the night. I kept going. Through the soaked rice fields, my feet bleeding from hidden roots and rocks. The dogs howled closer. I stumbled. Fell. Got up. Did it again. I saw a road ahead. Dim lights. A small night market. I slowed, tried to blend. Dirty clothes soaked in sweat, but in rural Thailand, no one asked questions at 3 a.m. Vendors were frying fish. A truck was being loaded with crates of mangoes. I slipped behind it. The driver was arguing with a seller. I crept to the back of the truck, climbed in, buried myself under burlap sacks and empty boxes. The engine roared. We moved. I didn't breathe for 20 minutes. But no one checked. No one stopped us. We drove for hours. I lay still, letting the motion blur time. At dawn, the truck stopped at a wholesale market near the eastern coast, Rayong province. I slid out unnoticed, melted into the crowd. Somehow, I was still free. But I knew it wouldn't last long. I found a grimy public restroom. Looked in the cracked mirror. I didn't recognize the man staring back. Eyes hollow. Skin gray. Shirt torn. A ghost. I washed up as best I could. In my pocket, I found a miracle, crumpled bills. Leftover from Pro Chai. Maybe guilt. Maybe bait. Didn't matter. It was enough for a bus ticket. Direction, Trat. Near the Cambodian border. The ride was slow, hot, and loud. But to me it felt like heaven. I sat by the window, watching fields and temples pass, letting the motion convince me I was still moving forward. Then, checkpoint. 2 officers in brown stepped on board. Passports. ID. They moved row by row. I had nothing. I faked sleep. Tilted my head. Slumped in the seat. The officer was 2 rows away. Then his radio crackled. 3 escaped from Bangkwang. Armed. Dangerous. Suspected near Rayong. Be alert. He froze. Looked down the aisle. Right at me. I held my breath. But then... Screech. Shouting. Outside. Accident. Car flipped. The officers rushed off the bus. The driver followed, cursing. I didn't wait. I bolted to the back door. Pushed it. Open. I leapt into the jungle. Branches slapped me. Thorns cut me. I didn't care. I ran until the sounds of the road were gone. I was deep in the green now. Swallowed by it. The jungle was alive, breathing, watching, whispering. I drank from muddy streams. Ate wild fruit I hoped wouldn't kill me. By night, I tied myself to tree limbs so I wouldn't fall and sleep. By day, I moved east. Always east. Toward Cambodia. Toward the promise of another chance. 2 days in, I found him. An old man. Bent from age. Gathering herbs near a bamboo hut. He saw me. Didn't flinch. I raised my hands. No harm. Just water. Food. Please. I gave him money. He shook his head, then pointed to a scar on his neck. A rope scar. Then pointed to me. Then to the jungle. Then to a tattered map on the wall. He knew. And he'd been me once. His name was Sam Chai. He gave me food. Water. Silence. Then a plan. Border. 2 days. Through swamp. Then river. Quiet crossing. No patrols. I nodded. We didn't need words. The next morning, he handed me a machete, a pouch of dried fish, and a wooden carving of the Buddha. Luck, he said. I bowed. Thank you. Then vanished into the trees. The jungle was worse now. Deeper. Wetter. Alive with things that didn't want me there. Leeches. Insects. Snakes coiled like rope in the branches. But I pressed on. I followed his map. Turned at the crooked tree. Climbed the ridge with the red moss. By the second evening, I reached the river. On the far side, Cambodia. Freedom. I waited until night. Then stepped into the water. The current was slow. Warm. Halfway across, a patrol boat passed nearby. Spotlights. Voices. I ducked. Held my breath. Clung to a submerged branch until the light passed. Then swam. When I dragged myself onto the far shore, I collapsed into the mud. I was across. I was out. But I wasn't safe yet. Not even close. I lay on the Cambodian shore like driftwood. Soaked. Bruised. Empty. I'd made it across. I'd escaped Thailand. I'd escaped Bangkwang. I'd escaped death. But I hadn't escaped myself. The forest on this side of the border was quieter, but no less alive. No welcome sign. No brass band. Just the sound of wet leaves, insects, and my own heartbeat. I didn't know where to go. Didn't know who to trust. I had only a hand-drawn map, faded and crumpled from the journey, with a circle near a bend in the river. That's where I headed. The sun rose as I reached the first huts. A clearing. Smoke from morning fires. Simple homes made of bamboo and palm leaves. I hesitated at the edge. I looked like something dragged from hell, mud-caked, bleeding, sunken-eyed. From one hut a man emerged. Old. Slender. Scar across his cheek. He carried 2 buckets and walked with the careful grace of someone who'd survived too much. He saw me. Stopped. I raised my hands. No words. Just the carved Buddha amulet Samchai gave me. His eyes widened. He walked over. Took the amulet. Turned it over in his palm. Then pointed at himself. Nam. His name. I nodded. Alexei. But the name felt foreign. Like it belonged to someone else. He led me into his hut. Bare walls. 1 mat. A small stove. A pot of rice. I sat on the floor. He poured water into a tin cup and handed it to me. It tasted like forgiveness. For days I didn't ask questions. And he didn't demand answers. He fed me. Let me rest. Sometimes we worked side by side in his small garden. Sometimes we sat in silence, watching the rain eat the jungle. At night, he told stories of war, of smuggling, of the time he lived in trees for weeks, evading soldiers. I didn't understand half of his words, but I understood the pain behind them. He knew what it meant to be hunted. One evening, he brought out a photograph. 2 young men, shirtless, rifles slung across their backs, standing in thick green. One was him. The other, Sam Chai. I didn't speak, just nodded. Family wasn't always blood. He told me I couldn't stay forever. Too dangerous. You need papers. New life. He promised to help. He knew someone, a friend in the city, a contact in Phnom Penh. But first you rest. You disappear. And I did. For the first time in years, I didn't run. I didn't fight. I slept. I let the jungle lull me to sleep. I let Nam's quiet strength hold me up. I worked. Fixed a leaky roof. Repaired a broken water pump. My hands remembered their purpose. My body remembered what it was like to live. But I still didn't know who I was. One morning, Nam handed me a cloth-wrapped bundle. Inside, clean clothes, a small envelope of cash, and a bus ticket. Siem Reap, he said. Tourist city. You blend in. Friend will meet you. New name. New job. You disappear again. I didn't want to leave. But I knew I had to. We didn't hug. Just stood in silence as the old pickup truck took me down the dirt road. He raised his hand in farewell. I raised mine. No words. Just eyes full of thanks. Siem Reap was color and chaos. Tourists. Tuk-tuks. Neon signs. Market stalls. Western faces. It felt like the future after a lifetime in a coffin. I found the hostel his friend owned. A Frenchman named Jean-Pierre. Big belly. Bigger voice. He didn't ask questions. Fix the plumbing. Don't steal. Eat what we eat. You'll be fine. That was it. And I was fine. Nights passed. Weeks. I worked. Ate. Slept. And for the first time, I lived. I spoke broken Khmer. Learned how to joke with locals. Repaired motorbikes. Helped tourists who didn't know their way. I became nobody. A face without a name. And for now, that was enough. Some nights I sat on the rooftop of the hostel and just stared at the stars. Siem Reap was alive below me. Glowing tuk-tuks, drunk tourists, the thump of EDM from clubs full of people who didn't know the meaning of fear. Up here, it was quiet. But my mind wasn't. I still woke in cold sweat. Still heard dogs barking. Still saw the tunnel's ceiling closing in above me when I closed my eyes. Bangkwang was behind me, but it wasn't gone. Not really. I started spending time in an internet cafe a few blocks from the market. Old dusty fans spun overhead. Faded posters of ancient temples on the walls. The connection was slow. The chair creaked. But the screen lit up like a window to a world I'd forgotten. The first thing I searched was Bangkwang prison escape. And there it was. A brief article from a Thai news site, translated badly into English. 3 inmates escaped Bangkwang Central Prison through maintenance tunnel. Suspected foreign nationals. Still at large. Thai authorities cooperating with Interpol. No names. No photos. Just a whisper. I exhaled slowly. No one knew for sure. Li Wei, no word. Sagda, maybe still in the game, maybe dead. And me? A ghost in a tourist city. One night, I typed a name I hadn't said aloud in years. Irina Voronina. My wife. I didn't expect to find her. But there she was. Profile picture. Married again. A baby girl in her arms. Photos from a small seaside town in Russia. She was smiling. She looked healed. And I felt something break in me. Gratitude. Grief. Relief. Something I couldn't name. I closed the tab. I never messaged her. Some things were better left unbroken. That night, the hostel owner, Jean-Pierre, waved me over. "You speak Russian?" he asked. "Yes," I replied cautiously. "Come meet someone. Room 203. I followed him up the stairs. Inside the room, a man in his 60s, silver hair, white linen shirt, reading a book in Cyrillic. He looked up. His eyes sharpened. "You're Russian." It wasn't a question. "Yes." I paused. "You?" "Victor," he said. "I was with the embassy. Now I'm retired. Travel. Right. Breathe." He smiled, but there was a weight behind it. "And you?" He looked at me closely. "You have the look of a man who's survived something that should have killed him." I said nothing. But something shifted between us. A current. Over the next few days, Victor and I talked. He never asked directly. But he knew. He mentioned Bangkwang once, casually, like tossing a stone in a lake. I didn't flinch. That was my answer. He nodded. "My son died in that system," he said. "Drugs. Corruption. Suffocated before trial. They said pneumonia. I knew better. I didn't know what to say. So I said the truth. I got out." Victor poured 2 glasses of whiskey. "Then tell me how." And I did. For hours, in that small, fan-humming room, I told him everything. The setup. The prison. The tunnel. The betrayal. The blood. The jungle. The ghosts. He didn't take notes. He just listened. Eyes like anchors. When I finished, it was past midnight. "You're not done," he said. "You're just breathing again." Then he handed me a business card. "I still have friends at the embassy in Phnom Penh. If you ever want to go home, not to your old life, but a new one, they can help." I stared at the card. My fingers trembled. "You're offering me a life," I whispered. "No," he said. "You already took your life back. I'm offering you a passport." That night I didn't sleep. I stood on the roof until dawn, staring east, toward Phnom Penh, towards something I never thought I'd see again. A future. I held the card Victor gave me for 2 days. It sat on my nightstand, silent and powerful, like a key I wasn't sure fit any door I wanted to open. Every morning I stared at it. Every night I thought about what would happen if I used it. Would I be arrested? Deported? Would I vanish again, this time into some forgotten cell in another country? But in the end, you only come this far to keep going. I bought a bus ticket to Phnom Penh with the last of my saved money. Jean-Pierre hugged me without asking why. I thanked him with a nod and a full water tank in the kitchen. The bus ride was 6 hours of silence, dust, heat, and memories. Every bump in the road felt like a heartbeat. Every stop like a checkpoint. But no one looked at me twice. And then the city opened up, wild, pulsing, alive. Phnom Penh. The place where I might disappear again. Or finally, return. The Russian embassy was a slab of concrete behind steel gates and vines. It didn't look like freedom. But it was. I walked in and gave them the name on Victor's card. They told me to wait. I did. In a cool room with hard chairs and a painting of Lake Baikal, I waited for 30 minutes that felt like a decade. Then a man entered. 40-something. Neat suit. Tired eyes. He extended his hand. Andre. Consular staff. Victor told me to expect you. He gestured for me to sit. No threats. No accusations. Just presence. He said your story matters. That it needs to be heard by the right people. So start at the beginning. No lies. No edits. So I told it again. All of it. From the briefcase. To the heroin. To the trial I didn't understand. To the 7 years of rot and blood and silence. To Sagda. Li Wei. The tunnel. The stink. The water. The light. Andre didn't interrupt. He just nodded. He'd heard worse. But maybe not braver. When I finished, I could barely speak. My mouth dry. My hands still clenched. We can't erase the past, he said softly. But we can document it. File it. Protect it. He slid a folder across the desk. This is the process. Temporary papers. Proof of identity. You'll need to answer questions, pass checks, wait for approval. It won't be fast. It won't be clean. But if your claims hold up, we can bring you home. I didn't ask what home meant anymore. I just said, I'll wait. I've waited long enough. I spent the next weeks in Phnom Penh like a man between dimensions. Not a tourist. Not a fugitive. Not yet a citizen. A ghost in transition. I stayed in a cheap guest house near the river. Answered every interview. Gave fingerprints. Signed affidavits. One evening, Victor came by with a bottle of Armenian cognac. It's not over yet, he said, pouring 2 shots. But you've already done the hardest part. You stayed human. We drank. Watched the sun melt into the Mekong. A month later, I received a sealed envelope from the consulate. Inside, a temporary Russian passport. I stared at it for a long time. Not because of what it was, but because of what it meant. I had a name again. Not just a number. Victor drove me to the airport himself. We didn't talk much. Just sat in silence as Cambodia blurred past the window. You'll need help back home, he said finally. I'll arrange a contact. You won't be alone. I've been alone before, I said. Now I'm ready for what comes after. He smiled. That's what freedom sounds like. My flight took me from Phnom Penh to Doha. From Doha to Moscow. 30 hours of air. 30 hours to think about who I'd been. And who I might become. When the plane touched down, the Russian tarmac felt like foreign soil. But the cold air in my lungs. That felt like memory. I was home. Not the same man. Not even the same name. But alive. And for the first time in years, not afraid of what came next. Moscow met me with sleet. Cold. Wet. Familiar. A slap across the face that said, "You're back. Now stand up." The airport was bright and clinical. Customs took longer than I'd hoped. A guard squinted at the temporary passport, asked too many questions. But in the end, they stamped it. Boom. Done. The city outside was bigger than I remembered. Colder, too, not just the air, but the way people moved. Eyes down. Mouths shut. Shoulders raised like armor. I blended in perfectly. Victor kept his word. He'd arranged for a room in a communal apartment near the third ring, Soviet-era building, peeling wallpaper, neighbors who didn't ask questions. The woman next door lent me a coat. Said it used to belong to her son. Didn't say what happened to him. I said thank you. Didn't ask. Starting over was quiet. No headlines. No news crews. Just me, a pile of paperwork, and a small construction firm that needed a night guard. They paid cash. Didn't ask about my past. I worked from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. 12 hours of silence, walking between empty scaffolding and portable heaters. At first, I hated it. The cold, the echoes, the solitude. But after Bangkwang, solitude felt like mercy. I started writing. Not a memoir, I wasn't ready. Just thoughts. Scenes. Little fragments I didn't want to forget. The smell of sewer water. The way Li Wei nodded without speaking. The exact taste of the first mango I stole in the jungle. Some nights, I wrote until the sunrise. Other nights, I stared at the blank page and cried without knowing why. Victor published a short version of my story in a literary journal under a fake name. He called it The Tunnel Between Worlds. It got attention. People read it. Some called it fiction. Others saw through it. One journalist reached out. "Are you him?" I didn't respond. Some truths are best left unnamed. Months passed. I learned how to live again. How to pay taxes. How to open a bank account. How to look a cashier in the eye. I got used to silence. But not to mirrors. Every time I looked, I still saw that prisoner. Still saw the man crawling through filth, gasping for light. Then, one day, a letter. No return address. Just my name. Inside, a photograph. 3 men standing in a rice field. Sagda. Li Wei. Me. Behind us, a boat made of plastic and wire. The raft. The handwriting on the back said, "Made it to Hanoi. Open a noodle stand. Sagda still complains about everything. Hope you're alive, ghost. LW." I stared at it for hours. They made it. They're alive. A smile broke across my face, awkward, rusty. I laughed for the first time in years. The kind of laugh that hurts your ribs. The kind that tells you it wasn't all for nothing. Now I work in a garage outside the city. Fix old trucks. Drink tea with men who talk too much about weather and football. At night, I walk along the frozen river. I wear gloves. I watch the sky. And sometimes, I breathe. Deep. Full. Free. Not because I escaped a prison, but because I earned the right to exist. That's the real price of breathing. To carry the weight of memory, and still move forward.
If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories like this one. Thank you for watching.